Yes, beautiful people. It is time to talk about doom scrolling and fear as a narrative complex. Now, the astrology this week looks like it is pretty. It really wants to serve up a fearful narrative. And so it's going to be up to us to decide whether or not we want to engage and how we want to engage with that kind of material. Of course, I am your boy Zamboni Funk. You can catch me at zambonifunk.com, and I've been doing astrology and music and stuff for a number of years. And it is time to talk about the astrology of the week ahead. So this week we do have, so there's two main things that I want to talk about this week. One is the full moon in Leo. So the full moon is always opposite to the sun. So we've got the moon opposite to the sun, and these both are square to Uranus in Taurus this week. So we've got the moon in Leo, the sun in Aquarius. Mercury is also nearby there in Aquarius at the time of the full moon. And then these are square to Uranus in Taurus, pretty exactly at the time of the full moon. So full moon is always going to be a time of like high emotions and feelings. Like the tide is really high as far as like the way that people are feeling, like stuff gets crazy in the streets and all this kind of stuff. Like and then we see a square to Uranus, and it looks especially disruptive. It looks like it really wants to, like, this is a really good moment for like breaking away. Breakups, breakdowns, breakthroughs look really good here. Uranus always likes a certain amount of liberation, like breaking away from the way that you had been before, or the situation or circumstance that you had been in before, and sort of like getting out anything but this and like moving forward, even if the move forward looks immediately like something that is maybe a little more difficult than whatever situation you had been in before. It is at least free, and so you can try something new. It gives you new options for potentially building a better future and this kind of thing, right? So Uranus is frequently associated with that kind of thing. And so a full moon, that's going to be the brightest moon possible. That's going to be really good for reflection and thinking about how to shine my light more effectively in the world. And maybe the way to do that is to break away from the thing that I had been doing before. This looks also, this is a full moon in Leo. Leo is the sign of the sun, right? And so the sun is actually in Aquarius, as far away from home as possible. And so there is much question right now as to how much autocratic authority the heads of state should have and this kind of thing, right? We can, of course, notice that we are moving into a period of Uranus and Gemini. Currently, Uranus is in Taurus, and this full moon is going to be square to Uranus and Taurus. But throughout the year, we're going to notice Uranus moving into Gemini for a moment. And then that's going to be 7 years of Uranus in Gemini, which is historically a period that it correlates with very strong authority in the presidency in the United States. The precedents that we have for that are Washington, Lincoln, and FDR up to this point. And so this is on an 84-year cycle. And so we can guess that we are moving toward strongman authority in at least the U.S. presidency. The Uranus in Gemini is correlated with U.S. politics and is not necessarily associated with global politics. But because the United States is such a major player, then it's maybe useful to think with that as a way to think with what's going to be happening in the world at large. So seeing the full moon in Leo, that's the sign of the sun. The sun is going to be associated with like heads of state and imperial authority and stuff like that. But the sun is also associated with drama and with the stage and this kind of thing, right? So like this is a really useful, like, so much of the politics that we see going on here is theatrical. Like, a lot of this is a stage show. It's a stage performance, right? The sun is associated with both politicians and actors. What does that tell us about the way that politics functions, right? And so this is really interesting. So let's put a pin in that for a second, right? So we've got our situation here where we're thinking about politics as drama, right? Politics as theater, and the centralization of authority, and maybe having some kind of break with that, right? So like, or break that is associated with centralization of power. think about that for a second. Then the other thing that we've got going on this week is we've got Mercury moving into Pisces. So a little bit after that full moon, which is early in the week, then we'll see Mercury moving into Pisces, where Mercury is deeply uncomfortable. Mercury is said to be fallen in this place. This is a place where Mercury has lots of trouble doing the Mercury things. Mercury's job is to tell a story. Mercury is the journalist or the storyteller, the one who, the griot, the one who keeps all the stories and gives them out in the different ways, tells stories in all of the different ways, all of the communication. We can think about, like speaking, writing, but also listening and reading and all of the communicative stuff. That's Mercury, right? Mercury in Pisces is down underneath the water, in the deep water of Pisces, right? And so the thing that I always say about Mercury in a water sign is like, try to say something underneath the water. Like immediately stuff gets garbled and you get a bunch of water in your mouth, and like it's a problem, right? So Mercury in a water sign is going to be usually better at listening than at speaking, right? And so saying things and communicating things effectively, especially in a prosaic kind of way, thinking legalistically and this sort of stuff, that is just going to be real difficult with Mercury in Pisces. Mercury in Pisces typically is better with poetry, with metaphor, with song, this kind of thing. But, so there's that. And then moving into Pisces, then we can also see that Mercury is going to be hanging out with Saturn for a lot of that. So Mercury already feeling weak and having a difficult time doing the Mercury things of communicating and telling stories and all of that. And telling stories in a cohesive and coherent kind of way. Running into Saturn. Saturn is the problem planet, the one who is typically associated with trouble, with obstacles, with boundaries, responsibility. Like have you done your stuff? Like, oh, you haven't done your stuff. Well, maybe there are some consequences for that. That's all Saturn sort of stuff. Also, Saturn can be easily associated with fear. Generally, the fear of things that are known. Like if you are out in the woods at night, then you know that there's bears out in these woods, then you need to know how to deal with bears because bears are a legitimate threat to you. And so that is the kind of thing that Saturn is typically associated with, is that kind of fear, right? And so to see Mercury, the storyteller, coming into Pisces, where there's like maybe too much information and it becomes difficult to parse, to sort through in ways that are immediately intelligible, and at the same time there's a relationship here to fear, then we can think about how prevalent doom scrolling is in the moment that we're in. I've been sort of doom scrolling my damn self. Let's be real. I've been sick for a little while, and so haven't had much to do, and so I have engaged in far too much of that. And one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of my friends, people who are my peers, people in my age group and surrounding, there's a lot of feeling like giving up, a feeling of hopelessness in this political moment, and feeling like the bad guys are winning, the bad guys always win, and there's no reason, like there's been suicidality in these people's stories and this kind of stuff, right? And so what I am feeling here is that like the political theatrics of this moment are pushing people toward a sense of fear and hopelessness around what's going on in the world. And so, one of the things that I've said about Saturn in Pisces is about narrative storytelling and world building, and like the sense of like being in an immersive place that builds out a whole world. And so, and then we add Mercury to that. Mercury's the journalist, and so Mercury's gonna like sort of talk about news stories in a way that brings narrative world building to a really strong, like it builds things out in a way that is tangible in some sort of way, and and then makes it fearful in some sort of way, and then that as political apparatus, like I wonder if we can Uranus this in some kind of way. I wonder if there's a way to disrupt our relationship to the theatrical politics and the story that is being told. You know, like there's no mainstream, but there is a meta narrative that's going on here that is itself fearful. And I wonder if there's a way for us to disrupt our relationship to that.